Great to see you on this Thursday. We'll get to your national forecast in just a moment. Still big news, big weather news. Aid slowly but steadily going to some of the Caribbean islands. Devastated, virtually wiped out after Hurricane Irma. More vulnerable, less vulnerable, but plenty of damage. 2 landfalls. Hurricane Irma, Florida. We'll start there. The remnants of what was a very powerful and long-lasting Hurricane Irma. This cloud cover here stretching up past Cape Cod towards the southern Maritimes and just poking into the Niagara region, Ontario today. Meanwhile, this is where the weather is really dynamic. Rain across the prairies, especially this zone that is going to see 50 to 70 millimeters of rain in some places. Cool day. We've been hearing from some of our viewers north of Superior, Manitowocc. Wood stove on today. It was balmy yesterday. Well, that's the way it is sometimes in fall. Several waves of rain coming. It'll pick up in intensity tomorrow along with the winds for Manitoba. Meanwhile, southerly winds south of Superior stretching all the way through eastern Canada. Forecast temperatures and feels like for both today and Friday. Timmins, Kapuskasing, Sudbury not doing too bad. Muskoka, Mississauga, Montreal, and Moncton. Yeah, Humidex values feeling like the 30s and feeling about 20 or so for St. John's. A mild day today, tomorrow fairly quiet for now. Active weather resuming for the BC coast later this weekend. But for now, it's only 18 degrees for Winnipeg. We were close to twice that 2 days ago. We got to 35, shattered the old record temperature. Now down to 18, which is normal, below normal, and way below normal in Alberta. But I'll tell you why this is good news. Lethbridge, you could say, is the gateway to the Waterton Lakes National Park, and that's where fire behavior has been extreme and aggressive. It's cooler, less windy, and wetter now. Great to see you on this Thursday. Boy, it is feeling like summer in eastern Canada, and it sure is feeling like fall or late fall in Alberta today. We've had some sharp downpours already around central Alberta, around the capital region. Arctic high pressure, thank you very much, bringing in much colder air, low teens at best, more like high single digits in many places, including areas south of Lethbridge, south of Calgary today, Lethbridge, around Taber. We've got very cool air, and that, of course, is very good news for this massive fire that has grown explosively this week. Grew just a little bit more yesterday, as of yesterday evening, and we'll be updating this map as fire behavior becomes a bit more controllable or predictable due to the fact that the winds are lighter. They're coming out of the north as opposed to varying directions. And there's also higher humidity and some rain and some alpine snow. So all of these things helping to slow fire behavior and to limit the erraticness of it. Meanwhile, Ontario, drenching rain. Too bad we can't just move this over there further west, because this is a lot of rain coming. You'll see your local forecast in a moment, and you'll see exactly when the rain will stop and start. We've had some heavier downpours today north of Superior, some rain around Thunder Bay, but the worst of it outside the city, and then another big push tomorrow through the start of the weekend. Meanwhile, the start of the weekend will be much like the end of the weekend, many parts of eastern Canada. You almost don't want to draw too much attention to it, I think, is how many of our viewers and followers are feeling, because it's been so hard to get into some great weather for any long stretch this summer. Midsummer, we have not hit the fall equinox yet, so technically, yes, it is still summer. Halifax 22 for Friday, Montreal, Toronto 26, feeling like the low 30s. St. John's, slight wind shift, a couple of degrees cooler than today, but very pleasant at 18. That's seasonal. That's a normal temperature. We should be 18 in Calgary. We are not. We are cooling down in Winnipeg, 36 in Carman and 35 in Winnipeg just a couple of days ago. So what a cool down into Saturday. Vancouver still quiet. Sunday we'll start to see showers move in, part of a pattern change for British Columbia that will push its way across the Rockies. So we start to warm up. Back to seasonal for Calgary. Very pleasant day. Waterton Park, let's hope that by then fire crews will have been successful in making more containment efforts. The fire is large and it's been growing aggressively, but it is contained outside the park perimeter, outside Waterton Lakes National Park perimeter. 26 for Toronto, half that in Winnipeg. You dry up a bit by Monday. And a stronger and deeper look ahead. I know we've revealed our fall forecast this week, a broad trend for the season coming up, but how about the week or two coming up? Long Ranger after this. All right, Long Ranger, I promise it's coming up in just a second. It's a little more like summer to the east. It's a little more like winter when we look at some of the pictures from Banff and from, Kananaskis country. There's been some snow falling over the last day or so here. Cold rain, Arctic high pressure to the north, sunshine in BC, developing storm track, northern Ontario, all really key things that we need to talk about. What a temperature contrast. Let me show you Calgary at 9, Toronto at 25, and we should be in the high teens here and the low 20s, maybe 20 degrees or so in Toronto. So, 10 below normal, 5 above. Enjoy while it lasts. Certainly, conditions are unsettled to the north. They'll be getting wetter as the days go on. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, unsettled conditions for Winnipeg, down to 11. That is a cold rain. And I just double checked. I mean, the city of Toronto is normally 22 at this time of year. Head north from Lake Ontario, the normal highs drop off. We're 5 above average. It's kind of balmy. That continues in the Maritimes. Vancouver, dry and quiet. Change Sunday. Weather Watch 24/7. Oh, we don't stop. And of course, you can get your latest online. You make sure you've got the Weather Network app. We all have the app, right? Or so we should, for sure. And it's got push notifications so you can find out if lightning is in your area. There have been some pretty heavy downpours today around Armstrong and Lake Nipigon, down towards Rossport and Schreiber. Beautiful spots on the north shore of Lake Superior. Some great whitefish, too. Delicious freshwater whitefish. Well, that's going to be a pretty wet drive. And this is a stunning drive, but it can be a bit hair-raising on the Trans-Canada around Superior with wet conditions. So keep that in mind as we head towards the weekend and ongoing rounds of rainfall. Some beneficial rain for the big fire in southern Alberta. We've had plenty of rain, beneficial or not. Southern Ontario, also southern Quebec this year. Some calling it a bummer of a summer. And I'd have to say, I'd be right in there with that little moniker. 26, feeling like 32. And it's hard to believe, but it's been dry all week. And it continues dry, and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday all look dry and sunny for the weekend. My goodness, what's happened? We're getting summer in September. We're getting drier weekends, at least this coming weekend, drier, warmer weekends that we had for much of July and August. And that's always the tricky timing, isn't it? It's all very well if things are normal, but if the rain happens when you're off work, not good timing. And it does tend to skew our perspective. The perspective for Atlantic Canada is that you're benefiting from the same warm southwesterly flow in the Maritimes, Newfoundland today more than tomorrow, and in the west, well, the western half of our country, we're not benefiting from a southwest flow. We did this week. We hit the high 20s and the low 30s in Alberta, then Saskatchewan and Manitoba, and then temperatures tumbled. Calgary just 9, Vancouver 20 and sunny. You'll have a dry couple of days and then wet weather and cooler temperatures settle in for Sunday, Monday. Check that in your local forecast in just 1 minute. This is good news. And why do I say it's good news to see these single-digit highs in the south? Banff's had snow. Check out our social media platforms. I've been retweeting some of the photos today of the snowfall. This is extremely good news because of the massive and what has been a very aggressive fire in Waterton Lakes. Now, some property has been lost, some structures have been lost, ranches as well. High pressure settles in. It is high pressure, but it is not hot and dry. It is cool and dry, and relative humidity rising because of the recent rain. So some rain today, lighter winds, then drying up for Lethbridge and for the region, Pincher Creek and Waterton. And what's this? Cooler through next Thursday? You bet. That's what I was talking about off the top. The fact that the next round of wet weather, Sunday, Monday, we'll see several rounds, north and south, coast and interior. More now. We've got some rain and colder temperatures beneficial in Alberta. We've got some hot and balmy conditions across eastern Canada. And you know, the cloud cover from the remnants of Irma are pushing up across the lower Great Lakes today. We'll go there in a moment, but first to what is essentially a battle zone. Wow, the force of rain and wind, not to mention storm surge, so much damage. And potential damage when we have a train of moisture and a feed coming out of the southwest. This is a really strong frontal boundary that's going to be with us today, Thursday. Rain eases a bit in intensity. Looks pretty good. And then we take you to Friday breakfast time, lunchtime, and by afternoon time, a widespread swath of rain, and for some it'll be a 50-millimeter rainfall. That's about 2 inches. There could be a few embedded thunderstorms. There have been today. It's that kind of setup, and training moisture, in other words, disturbance and then another one right behind it following the same train tracks, if you will, can cause more damage because it's an ongoing and an oversaturation kind of situation. So more rain to come. Further south, mild air, a little bit of cloud cover drifting up from the U.S., from New York State and from the Maritimes, or from New England in towards the Maritimes, Quebec and Ontario. Obviously the big story here is the heat. The heat, few clouds, isolated shower or two perhaps from the remnants of Irma, 9 only for Calgary. Wet weather for the Waterton Park area. That is good news. This pattern change, fair and dry in BC, but as we get to the end of the weekend and into next week, more rain will return. That's about 20 degrees cooler today, your high in Calgary, compared to Monday. And Tuesday was no slouch either, but the temperatures have been slumping downwards along with cold rain, gusty winds, also alpine snows. Now, the wet weather, obviously good news for the big Waterton Lakes National Park fire. More on that in a moment. Some heat and humidity, eastern Canada, temperatures this afternoon above average. There's some heavy rain developing, several bands of it in the future days. We're seeing on our future radar a hint of that. It will become more organized. Meanwhile, south of the border, disorganized, but this, the remnants of Irma, devastating Hurricane Irma. And there's more in the Atlantic. Kelly. And that is pretty typical, especially when you've got, thanks Kelly, a slow-moving storm system, so there's time for it to build up, pull the water levels up, push it towards shore, and basically disturb the whole flow, the traditional or the typical ocean currents. It's dropped below 118, so it's no longer a hurricane. West-northwesterly, continuing to track it. Let's hope it makes that critical, strong northerly turn and stays away from land. Back on land now. Another big story for us this week. We've been monitoring it since last week, and it started close to 2 weeks ago. It's the Keno wildfire. Now, this was the update late last night. Mandatory evacuations, quite widespread. Rainfall also very helpful, and continuing today, rain, high elevation snow, and calmer winds as well. It grew explosively earlier in the week. It added a couple thousand hectares in size yesterday. 9 degrees today for Calgary. I was looking at Lethbridge that had dropped to about 5-6 degrees this morning, and an afternoon high that'll be close to 9. And mainly cloud cover, not a drenching rain to put out the fire, but enough to raise humidity and I'm sure raise spirits too for our great fire crews there. A low stalling over the plains. That's the heavy rain coming. Check now.